Hi everyone, this is Angelica. Thank you for watching today. Today's video is going to be about taking pharmaceutical medication while you're going through a spiritual awakening. I just want to talk a little bit about this subject and give you my own experience and possibly some suggestions to help you kind of cope through this if it's something that you're going through. And in most of my videos, I like to talk about things that I have experience with. Um, and I think a lot of people, teachers or, you know, people in general, usually will talk about and try to teach things that they've gone through so that they can be more effective in conveying that information. So, I guess I'm just going to go right into my own personal story with this and then also give you some insight onto what's going on and what you possibly might be able to do instead of taking medication. So it's really great that we have YouTube now, and so you can watch these videos and get helpful information. When I started going through my spiritual awakening, there was no YouTube or anything, and I didn't know what was going on or what was happening to me at all. But it's wonderful because now there's a lot of information out there, and if you are interested in a certain topic, you can just look it up on YouTube, and there you go. So, first of all, when I first started changing, I didn't go through my huge, big spiritual awakening. For maybe a few years after, I slowly started to become more interested in I've always been interested in these types of topics, I guess, but more logical topics rather than like the actual spiritual aspects of things. And I have even been spiritual, so I don't want to say it that way, but I was more trying to intellectualize things in personal development and things like that before I really started feeling it with my whole being, the feeling process of this this awakening journey. So in the beginning, it was first just like reading different books and topics like that, but I was still able to stay grounded somewhat, what I thought was being grounded in my normal reality. Then things started changing to the point where I couldn't cope anymore. Okay. And what I started noticing is that I started becoming very sensitive. I started being able to communicate with other realms. I mean, very slowly this happened. It wasn't just like boom until a couple years later, which I was able to handle it at that point because I was already used to these weird things happening. But I started to slowly kind of start to communicate, and I'm like, okay, does this mean I'm crazy? And I wasn't sure. But what I did also notice is that I started being sensitive to foods that I normally probably was sensitive to, but didn't really feel it in my body, how sensitive I was to these types of foods. So in looking back, I just began to open up to a different realm, a different awareness. And when this happened, it not only brought this in, but it also brought up a lot of feelings within me, and I could just feel everything so much more. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on with me? At first, I really tried to see, okay, tried to change my diet, which I did, and that really, really helped. So just for a tip of advice, when you become more sensitive and your body's changing, you will have to change your diet. Most likely, you will find yourself very sensitive to foods that you've eaten previously. So I did go on to medication for a little while. And I did this was probably about 2004. And when I did this, I had to, because when I went in, I just couldn't cope with what was happening. All these things were coming in, rushing in, feelings, anxiety. I felt crazy, but I still had to somehow cope with like regular life. I mean, at this time I had 2 children that I had to take care of. And so my life was very, very much in upheaval. Like I was very distraught and very uneasy, feeling all these things, which was the beginning stages of my spiritual awakening. And, you know, I'd always had things going on that were hard to deal with, but this was really hard to deal with because, and I didn't know why, but it was just like everything was coming up and everything was happening around me, and I just didn't know how to make any sense of it. So I went on medication for a short time. So I'm not saying that medication is a bad thing for anyone. If you feel that you're at a time in your life when you need it to transition into a different place, then it may be helpful for you. Obviously, I don't agree with the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry, you know, most of the medical industry at all. I do believe it can be possibly beneficial to get through this particular, you know, life. This society is based upon certain structures and certain ways of living. And to get along in this society, to be able to go to work, to be able to go to school, to be able to handle and cope with this tremendous amount of, you know, responsibilities that we have to go through, it could be until you find yourself in a different, better place that you may have to, you may find yourself having to do that. I did. So, but I didn't know about, if I had these videos, I don't know if I would have gone on them, but I might have as well. I just don't know. Because as I started to change my diet, as I started to calm down, as I started to sort through each emotional thing that I had coming up, that was coming up to be healed, slowly but surely I was moving through these things that we're forced to move through when we're going through a spiritual awakening. And that's why it seems so difficult. Now you know, obviously now I still have things coming up, but I'm so centered, and I know what to expect, and I know how to move through these things really easily. But then I just couldn't cope at all. And I am not one to want to go on to medication. That's the last resort for me. And that's what I found that I needed to do. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're feeling crazy, or you're feeling like you can't handle some of the emotional stuff that's going to come up, then you know, I'm not advocating it at all, but I'm saying don't be hard on yourself if you find yourself in this situation. Long term, it could have harmful effects on your body, mind, and spirit. But, you know, if you're an aware person and you know what's going on with you, then you'll probably, you know, intuitively know that, and you'll know when you have to, you know, stop and move into a new type of situation. It's just a really hard thing that's going on now with people awakening, and then having to go out into the regular world and deal with the regular world at the same time. It's really kind of sad because, you know, there's no way of, you know, handling these situations in a loving way, a nurturing way, you know, guiding people into the healthy things that they should be doing, and getting them help with, you know, their emotions, and, you know, their energy centers, and their diets and nutrition. And these structures aren't set up yet. And the people awakening now are here awakening in a sense to set these structures up. So, you know, we're the ones that are putting these things in place so that others that come after into this awakening process will have an easier time. You know, this is all new. We're evolving. This is just something that's that hasn't happened that we know of, on the planet. It's a really good thing, but it can bring a personal crisis. And if you do go to a regular psychiatrist or a doctor, they're going to tell you that something's wrong with you. You're bipolar, you're this, you're that. I've been called, that's what they said, I was bipolar. And so, you know, they have to fit you into some sort of category and give you medication, but some medications can be very dangerous, even short term, much less long term. So if there are ways that you can try to cope with your process in a healthy way, through exercise and through diet, that's the main foundation of a healthy life. So if you can get those two things down, and those things you really have control over, then your emotional well-being will be much better, and you won't be struggling so much with the ups and downs of the emotional things. I notice that when I run regularly or walk regularly every single day, I don't have any emotional problems, because that walk or that run is kind of sorting out all those things, and all those emotions are coming out and being released, and I'm thinking about them in a very positive way. Also, when I eat really healthy foods that nourish me, and obviously when I get enough rest and I take time to myself to sort through some of the things that I might have going on that I really need to be feeling and releasing at that time. These are all things and ways that you can kind of cope if you're feeling like you're so overwhelmed. I mean, if you have a life that's really busy and you're a mother like I am, you just have to find ways. You have to, shift your life. Like, it might not, right now you might be so overwhelmed and all these things are going on in your life and you feel like, oh my gosh, I just can't cope. Okay, well, you need to come up with a plan, and you need to say, okay, here I am right now. What are some small steps I can take to shift my current life into, having more time? How can I get, a couple hours a week for just me, sitting in nature, really just start small. Start with the little steps that get you there until you have a schedule that fits your best healing, like, completely. That's what you have to do. I mean, I used to be so overwhelmed. I was just like, I couldn't even barely think of the one way and that I could, nurture myself. But little by little by little, it all shifted, and I just started doing little things over time that now created me. I still have being overwhelmed a lot, having 3 children. That will bring a lot of stress at times, but it's nowhere near where I was at before. And I've worked through a lot of the things, a lot of the emotional stuff from the past that the spiritual awakening process has you working on. And that's where you feel crazy. All of a sudden you're living a certain way, and then boom, all these things come up, and the main thing you're asked to do is shift your life in a new direction. You're asked to change as a person, and you're asked not only to change within, but without. So, it's just a huge change is what it is, and everything is going to get better, but at first it's going to seem like it's a lot worse. So if you are currently on medications, don't be hard on yourself. That's fine. Everybody has to do what they have to do for the time being, and you can, try to do more nurturing things for yourself and find some time for yourself to where you can really feel your feelings, because that's what it's about. It's about feeling these really tough emotions and going through them and healing them. You're healing all the way around. You're healing, and it's such a wonderful thing, and I'm so glad that you guys are you know, if you're watching this or going through this. I mean, it's really exciting because you will feel better, and this will truly bring, you know, a beauty in your spirit that will shine out through to everybody, and you will heal others just by being that way. So thank you so much for watching today, and I love you all, and I hope you all are well. And if you would like to talk with me and have a spiritual guidance session with me, you can go on my website and click on the Spiritual Services tab, and you'll find out about information on the services that I have if you would like to connect that way. Okay, thank you so much, everybody, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.